The spotlight burned, not like sunlight, harsher, more exposing the kind of light that reveals every flaw, every doubt, every reason you shouldn't be standing where you are. Darius felt it on his face, hot and unforgiving, as he stood center stage in the Riverside Academy auditorium. His fingers hovered above the piano keys, trembling slightly, catching the light like nervous birds uncertain of flight. From somewhere in the darkness beyond the stage, laughter rippled through the crowd. Not the warm kind that celebrates the cutting kind, the kind that brands you, that reminds you exactly what they think you are. "That's the homeless kid," someone whispered loud enough to carry. Another voice. "This should be good." Darius's worn sneakers, his only pair, cleaned as best he could manage that morning in a gas station bathroom pressed against the stage floor. The suit jacket his mother had bought hung slightly too large on his 12-year-old frame, the sleeves covering half his hands. He knew exactly like what he was, a boy who didn't belong here. His fingers found the first key, and then everything changed. But to understand that moment, that single point where mockery transformed into silence, where contempt became awe, you need to know how a homeless boy ended up on that stage at all. You need to know about the 6 months that led to this night, about the car that served as home, about the piano that saved him, about the people who believed and the ones who didn't. This is that story. 6 months earlier, Darius Mitchell woke up the way he'd woken up for the past year, curled in the back seat of a 2009 Honda Civic, his mother's jacket bunched under his head as a pillow condensation fogging the windows from their breathing. February cold seeped through the metal frame despite the blankets. His breath came out in small clouds. His mother, Diane, was already awake in the driver's seat, her phone casting blue light on her face as she scrolled through apartment listings they couldn't afford. She worked 3 jobs: morning shift at the diner on Route 30, afternoon, cleaning houses in the suburbs, night stocking shelves at the 24-hour grocery store. She'd been doing this for 11 months, ever since the eviction, since Darius's father's death had left them with hospital bills that swallowed everything, since their carefully constructed life had collapsed like a house of cards in wind. "Morning, baby," she said without turning around, her voice carrying that forced brightness she'd perfected, the tone that pretended everything was fine. "You ready for your first day at the new school?" Darius sat up, his back aching from the cramped position. Through the window he could see they were parked in their usual spot, the far corner of the Planet Fitness parking lot where the security cameras didn't quite reach. Other cars dotted the lot, and Darius knew that some of them, like theirs, held families. You learned to recognize the signs, the covered windows, the subtle shift of movement inside the careful timing of arrivals and departures. "Yeah," he said, though his stomach twisted with anxiety. "I'm ready." He wasn't ready. How could he be ready for Riverside Academy, one of the most affluent public schools in the Philadelphia suburbs? The school served neighborhoods where homes started at $500,000, where kids drove to school in cars nicer than any his family had ever owned. But his mother had worked the system, used a friend's address, pulled strings. He didn't fully understand all, so he could attend a school with actual resources, with music programs, with opportunities. "You're going to do great," she said finally, turning to look at him. Her eyes were tired, ringed with shadows that makeup couldn't quite hide, but they held fierce love. "You're brilliant, Darius. Don't let anyone make you think otherwise." They went through their morning routine with practiced efficiency. 5:45 a.m., the gym opened. They slipped inside with the early risers, Diane using her budget membership that she'd maintained even when food was scarce. Because where else could they shower? Darius had learned to take the fastest showers possible to change in the locker room stall to act like he belonged. He'd gotten good at acting like he belonged. By 7:30, Diane dropped him off 3 blocks from Riverside Academy. They'd agreed on this close enough to walk far enough that no one would see, the car wouldn't ask questions about where he lived. "I love you," she said, pressing a $10 bill into his hand for lunch. He knew it was money she couldn't spare. Money that meant she'd skip a meal herself. "Make me proud." "I always do," he said, and meant it. He walked those 3 blocks slowly, his backpack purchased from the thrift store, carefully scrubbed clean of someone else's name written in Sharpie slung over one shoulder. Around him, other students streamed toward the school's entrance, arriving in clusters, in expensive cars, in laughter and confidence. They wore brands he recognized from mall windows. They carried phones that cost more than his mother made in a month. They belonged to a world he could only observe from the outside. Riverside Academy rose before him like a castle, all brick and glass and promise. It looked nothing like his old school in the city with its metal detectors and tired teachers and classrooms where textbooks were shared. This place gleamed. This place spoke of futures being built, of college acceptance letters, of dreams coming true. Darius adjusted his too large jacket, lifted his chin, and walked through the doors like he had every right to be there. He had no idea how hard he'd have to fight to prove that right. No idea about the boy who'd make his life hell. No idea about the teacher who'd change everything. No idea about the piano waiting in a dusty community center or the talent that would sleep inside him until circumstance forced it awake. All he knew that first morning was that he had to survive. One day at a time. One class at a time. One lie about where he lived at a time. The rest, the music, the mockery, the moment that would define him, all of that was still waiting, coiled like a spring ready to release. The first thing Darius learned about Riverside Academy was that wealth had a smell. Not perfume exactly, though there was that too expensive fragrances that cost more per bottle than his mother's weekly grocery budget. No, it was something subtler. The smell of new clothes, of leather backpacks, of lunch money that came without guilt. It was the smell of not worrying, and it permeated everything. The second thing he learned was that invisibility was a skill, and he'd need to master it quickly. He succeeded for exactly 3 days. 3 days of keeping his head down, of eating lunch alone in the library, of dodging questions about where he lived and why no one could come over. 3 days of pretending the grumbling in his stomach was normal, that the exhaustion from sleeping in a car was just teenage tiredness, that he was fine, everything was fine. On the 4th day, Trevor Logan noticed him. Trevor was everything. Darius wasn't tall for 13 quarterback on the middle school football team, golden-haired and confident in the way that only comes from never having to question your place in the world. His father owned 3 car dealerships across the Philadelphia metro area. Their house, Darius would later learn, had 7 bedrooms for a family of 4. "Hey, Trevor," said, sliding into the cafeteria seat across from Darius, uninvited. 2 other boys flanked him, Austin and Kyle Trevor's perpetual shadows. "You're new, right? Where'd you move from?" Darius looked up from the sandwich he'd been rationing, trying to make it last. He'd learned early that direct answers invited follow-up questions, so he kept it vague. "The city, near Temple University area." Cool, Trevor said. But his eyes were cataloging details, the worn backpack, the too big jacket Darius never took off, because it hid his limited wardrobe, the generic sneakers from Walmart. "What's your address? Maybe we can hang out sometime." And there it was, the question Darius had been dreading. He'd prepared for this, practiced the lie. "Oh, we're still getting settled. Staying with family temporarily while my mom looks for a place. You know how it is." Trevor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Sure, man. I know how it is." But he didn't, and Darius could see that Trevor knew he was hiding something. It was the beginning of a dangerous game, Trevor's curiosity sharpening into something meaner, more predatory. Rich kids Darius was learning got bored easily, and when they got bored, they looked for entertainment. That afternoon, Darius discovered the one place in Riverside Academy where he felt like he could breathe the music corridor. It wasn't on his schedule he'd been placed in basic courses catch-up classes that assumed he was behind simply because of where he'd come from. But he'd gotten turned around looking for the bathroom and found himself in a hallway lined with practice rooms, each one containing an instrument. And at the end of the hall, through a large window, he saw a grand piano in the main music room. Something in his chest tightened. He hadn't seen a real piano since his father's funeral 3 years ago, where one had sat in the corner of the funeral home, silent and polished, like a promise no one would keep. His father had played piano jazz mostly in small clubs around Philadelphia. Not famous, barely making enough to contribute to bills, but happy. Darius remembered falling asleep to the sound of his father practicing notes drifting through their small apartment like a lullaby. The piano had been sold 6 months before they lost the apartment, sacrificed to medical bills that kept coming like a tide that never receded. "Can I help you?" Darius spun around. A woman stood in the doorway of one of the practice rooms, middle-aged black with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and gray threading through her natural hair, pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a cardigan despite the heated building, and sheet music was tucked under one arm. "Sorry," Darius said automatically. "I'm lost, looking for room 204. "That's the other wing," she said, but she was studying him with the same cataloging intensity Trevor had shown, except this felt different, less predatory, more curious. "I'm Mrs. Morrison. I teach music here." "Are you new?" "Yes, ma'am. Started Monday. Do you play?" She nodded toward the piano visible through the window. The question landed in Darius's chest with unexpected weight. Did he play? He'd pecked out melodies on his father's piano as a child before it was sold. He'd watched YouTube videos on library computers teaching himself basic scales and chords because music was the one thing that made him feel close to his father. "But did he really play no, ma'am?" he said, because admitting the truth felt like admitting too much. I like looking at them." Mrs. Morrison smiled, a small expression that suggested she didn't quite believe him but wouldn't push. "Well, if you ever want to learn, my classroom is open after school most days. We have pianos that need playing." She walked past him, then leaving a trail of vanilla perfume and possibility. Darius didn't go to her classroom that day, or the next. But 2 weeks later, after a particularly brutal day where Trevor had accidentally knocked his lunch tray onto the floor in front of the entire cafeteria, after spending his afternoon classes with an empty stomach and burning shame, after his mother had worked yet another double shift and come home to the car smelling like industrial cleaner and exhaustion, after all of that, Darius found himself standing outside the music room at 4:30 in the afternoon. Through the small window in the door, he could see it was empty. The piano waited lid open, keys gleaming under fluorescent lights. It looked nothing like his father's upright piano, with its chipped ivory and sticky keys. This was a real instrument, the kind professionals played. His hand found the doorknob before his brain registered the decision. The door opened silently. These were nice doors, not like the ones at his old school that squeaked and announced your presence. He stepped inside, and the quality of silence changed. Music rooms had different acoustics. The air itself seemed to wait patient and expectant. Darius walked to the piano like a man approaching an altar. His fingers trembled as they hovered over the keys. Middle C, he still remembered that much from his father's patient teaching when Darius was 7 years old sitting on his lap, learning the names of notes like other kids learned their ABCs. He pressed down. The note rang out, pure and clear, filling the room with sound that seemed to resonate in his bones. It was beautiful. It was everything he remembered, and more. He pressed another key, then another, picking out a simple melody his father used to play Autumn Leaves, though Darius only knew fragments, remembered pieces. "I thought you said you didn't play." Darius jerked back from the piano so fast he nearly knocked over the bench. Mrs. Morrison stood in the doorway, and he couldn't read her expression: surprise, amusement, anger that he'd trespassed. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I shouldn't have. I'll leave. Sit down." It wasn't a request. Darius sat. Mrs. Morrison walked over, pulled up a chair beside the piano bench, and watched him with those sharp, assessing eyes. "Play something else. I don't really know anything. Play what you know." So he did. Haltingly, uncertainly, he picked out the few melodies he'd taught himself from YouTube videos, watched in library computer labs bits of Beethoven's Für Elise, fragments of a Coldplay song he'd memorized by ear scales. He'd practiced on a paper keyboard he'd drawn, pressing silent keys on a school desk when teachers weren't watching. It wasn't much. It wasn't good. But it was honest. When he finished, Mrs. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Who taught you YouTube?" "And my dad a little. Before he died." Another long silence. Then, "Your father was Vincent Mitchell." It wasn't a question. Darius stared at her. "You knew my dad?" "I knew of him," Mrs. Morrison said carefully. "I used to perform at some of the same venues years ago. Small jazz clubs in Old City. Your father had a gift, a real gift. He could make a piano sing in ways that conservatory-trained players never could. He played with his soul, not just his fingers." Darius felt something crack in his chest, some wall he'd built to keep grief contained. "He was always just my dad. I didn't know. I mean, I knew he was good, but he was better than good." Mrs. Morrison leaned forward. "And unless I'm very mistaken, you inherited that gift. What I just heard, you taught yourself that. With no formal training." "Yes, ma'am." "Darius," she said, and the use of his name felt significant, personal. "I've been teaching music for 23 years. I can recognize natural talent when I hear it. And you have it. Raw, untrained, but real. Your father's gift didn't die with him. It lives in you." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Darius didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to believe her, wanted to grab onto the idea that he'd inherited something from his father besides debt and loss. But another part, the part that had learned not to hope too much, not to dream too big, whispered that this was dangerous territory. "I don't have a piano to practice on," he said finally. It seemed safer than addressing the bigger truth. Mrs. Morrison smiled. "Well, now you do. This room after school any day you want. I'm here most afternoons anyway. Consider it an open invitation." "Why?" The question slipped out before Darius could stop it. "Why would you do that for me?" The smile faded, replaced by something more serious. "Because talent like yours shouldn't go to waste. Because your father would want me to help. And because..." She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "Because I've seen too many gifted kids fall through the cracks because they didn't have the resources, the support, the chance. I'm not going to let that happen to you. Not if I can help it." That night in the car, after his mother had fallen asleep with her head against the window and her phone alarm set for the next shift, Darius thought about the piano, about Mrs. Morrison's words. about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he'd inherited more from his father than tragedy. He thought about Trevor Logan's laughter echoing in the cafeteria, about the way other kids looked at him when they thought he couldn't see the mixture of pity and contempt reserved for people who don't quite fit, about the exhaustion of hiding, of pretending, of being invisible. And he thought about how when his fingers touched those piano keys, none of that mattered. For those few minutes, he wasn't a homeless kid or a charity case or an outsider. He was just music, pure and simple and free. It was the first real hope he'd felt in months. He had no way of knowing then that this hope would be tested in ways he couldn't imagine. That Trevor Logan's casual cruelty would escalate into something darker. That Mrs. Morrison's support would become a lifeline when everything else threatened to drown him. That the piano would become not just an escape, but a battleground where he'd have to prove his worth to everyone who doubted him. All he knew drifting off to sleep in the back of that Honda Civic was that tomorrow he'd go back to that music room. And the day after that. And the day after that. The piano was waiting. And so was his father's legacy. Winter deepened, and with it, Trevor Logan's interest in making Darius's life miserable. It started small, casual remarks in the hallway, accidental shoulder checks between classes, stolen pencils, and disappeared homework. The kind of bullying that's hard to report, because how do you prove intent? How do you explain to adults that it's not about the pencil, it's about the systematic campaign to remind you that you don't belong? But Trevor was smart. He knew how to operate just below the radar of teacher intervention, and he knew how to recruit others into his campaign through a combination of charisma and social pressure. By March, there was an unspoken rule among the popular kids. Darius Mitchell was fair game. "Hey, Mitchell," Trevor called out one day during lunch. Darius had learned to eat in the music wing away from the cafeteria, but today he'd been running late from meeting with his English teacher. "Where do you live again? I was thinking of stopping by." The cafeteria noise level dropped slightly. Other kids sensed drama, turned to watch. "I told you," Darius said, keeping his voice level. "We're staying with family while we look for a place." Right, Trevor said, his smile sharp. "That's what you said. But funny thing, I asked around. Nobody seems to know which family. Nobody's seen you get picked up. And Austin here," he gestured to one of his friends. "He says he saw you walking from the direction of the Planet Fitness parking lot yesterday morning. Early. Like real early." Darius's blood went cold. He'd been careful, so careful, but not careful enough. In a suburb like this, everyone noticed everything, especially when you were someone they were watching. "So, I'm wondering..." Trevor continued, his voice loud enough now that the entire cafeteria could hear. "Do you actually live with family, or do you live in a car?" The silence that followed was absolute. Darius could feel every eye in the room on him, could feel the weight of exposure pressing down like a physical force. His mind raced through options. Denial would sound defensive, confirmation would be humiliating, and silence would be taken as admission. He chose silence. Trevor's grin widened. "That's what I thought. Hey everyone, we've got a homeless kid at Riverside. Make sure you hold on to your wallets." Laughter erupted not from everyone, but from enough people that it felt like drowning. Darius gathered his lunch, and walked out of the cafeteria with his head high, even though his hands were shaking, and his throat was tight with unshed tears. He made it to the bathroom before the first tear fell, locked himself in a stall, and pressed his palms against his eyes. He'd known this was coming, had prepared himself for exposure. But preparation didn't make it hurt less. His phone buzzed a text from his mother. "How's your day, baby?" with a heart emoji. She was on her lunch break at the diner, probably scarfing down food before the afternoon rush. She had no idea what had just happened, and he couldn't tell her. She carried enough weight without adding his problems. He texted back, "Good. Love you," and added his own heart emoji, because little lies were acts of love too. That afternoon he went to Mrs. Morrison's classroom like always, though. Part of him wanted to run to leave Riverside Academy and never come back. But where would he go? Back to his old school in the city, where they had no music program and no teachers who believed in him. Back to a future of nothing. Mrs. Morrison took one look at his face and said, "What happened?" He told her. All of it. The cafeteria scene, Trevor's systematic campaign, the exposure of his living situation. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing more severe with each sentence. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm going to talk to the principal about Trevor Logan's behavior. Bullying is—" "Please don't." The words came out more forcefully than Darius intended. "It'll just make it worse. He'll say it was a joke, and I'll be the sensitive homeless kid who can't take teasing. And then it'll get worse. So what do you want to do?" Darius looked at the piano. "I want to prove them wrong. All of them. I want to show them that where I sleep doesn't define what I can do." Mrs. Morrison studied him for a long moment. Then she walked to her desk and picked up a flyer. The annual Winter Talent Show is in 10 weeks. It's a big deal here. Parents come, local media sometimes covers it, and the winner gets recognized at the spring assembly. Students perform everything: dancing, singing, comedy instruments. She held out the flyer. "You should enter." Darius looked at the flyer like it might bite him. "And play piano in front of the entire school. The school that just found out I'm homeless. They'll tear me apart." Maybe Mrs. Morrison said. "Or maybe you'll show them what you're capable of. Maybe you'll take their mockery and transform it into something they can't ignore." She paused. "Your father never let anyone make him small. He walked into rooms full of people who thought jazz was beneath them, that he wasn't educated enough or refined enough, and he'd play until they had to respect him. He didn't ask for permission to be brilliant, he just was." "I'm not my father." "No," Mrs. Morrison agreed. "But you have his gift, and more importantly, you have something to prove. That's a powerful motivator." Darius took the flyer. His hands weren't shaking anymore. Over the next 2 weeks, Trevor's campaign intensified. Someone Darius couldn't prove it was Trevor, but he knew started an Instagram account called Riverside Homeless Watch that posted photos of Darius with captions mocking his clothes, his backpack, his situation. The account was reported and taken down within 3 days, but the damage was done. Screenshots circulated. The jokes multiplied. "Hey Mitchell, you charging rent for that locker? Dude, you smell like a car. Oh wait, my dad says we should donate to your GoFundMe, except you'd probably spend it on drugs or something." Each comment was a small cut, and by themselves they might have been survivable, but together they formed a pattern of systematic dehumanization. Darius was no longer a person to his classmates. He was a spectacle, a joke, a reminder of what they were grateful not to be. But something strange was happening too. Every afternoon he went to Mrs. Morrison's classroom, and every afternoon he played. And with each session, something inside him was waking up a hunger for the music, a recognition that here at this instrument, he was more than circumstances. He was creating something beautiful from nothing, transforming silence into sound, and nobody could take that from him. Mrs. Morrison started teaching him properly. Not just melodies, but theory. Not just playing, but understanding. Scales and arpeggios, chord progressions and dynamics. The architecture of music that made it more than just pretty sounds. She was patient, but demanding, correcting his finger placement, his posture, his timing. "Your father had natural talent," she told him one day. "But natural talent will only take you so far. Greatness requires discipline. It requires being willing to do the boring work that nobody sees. So he did the boring work. He practiced scales until his fingers ached. He studied sheet music like it was scripture. He learned to read the language of music the way other kids learned French or Spanish, as a door into another world, a world where he could be fluent and powerful. 6 weeks before the talent show, Mrs. Morrison placed a piece of sheet music on the piano, Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor. "This," she said, "is what you're going to play." Darius looked at the music. Even without being able to read it perfectly, yet he could see the complexity pages of dense notation markings for dynamics and tempo that seemed impossibly intricate. "I can't play this. It's too hard." "It's extremely hard," Mrs. Morrison agreed. "It's a piece that concert pianists struggle with. The technical demands are brutal, and the emotional range required is immense. It moves from somber to violent to triumphant. It tells a story without words." "Then why?" "Because when you play this at the talent show, no one will be able to dismiss you. They can mock your clothes, your living situation, your circumstances. But they can't mock this. This piece demands respect, and you're going to master it." In 6 weeks, Mrs. Morrison smiled. "You're Vincent Mitchell's son. You'll manage." That night, Darius told his mother about the talent show. They were parked in their usual spot, the car dark except for the glow of her phone as she scrolled through job listings. She'd been doing this for months, looking for a position with better pay, more hours, anything that might get them off the street. "You're going to perform?" she asked, and there was something in her voice Darius couldn't quite identify. Pride, maybe mixed with concern. "In front of the whole school, yeah." "Mrs. Morrison thinks I should." "What do you think?" Darius was quiet. What did he think? He thought he was terrified. He thought every time he imagined standing on that stage, his stomach twisted with anxiety. He thought about Trevor Logan's laughter, about the Instagram account, about all the ways this could go wrong. But he also thought about his father. About sitting on his lap, tiny fingers stretching to reach keys. His father's patient voice. Music isn't about playing the right notes, Darius. It's about feeling them. It's about taking what's inside you and giving it a voice. "I think," Darius said slowly, "that I need to do this. Not for them, for me. To prove to myself that I'm more than where I sleep." His mother reached back and took his hand. Her fingers were rough from cleaning products, her palm calloused from work, but her grip was warm and sure. "Your father would be so proud of you. I'm so proud of you, even if I fail, especially if you fail, because failing means you tried. Failing means you weren't afraid to be brave." She squeezed his hand. "But you won't fail. You're a Mitchell. We don't know how to quit." The next day, Darius signed up for the talent show. The sign-up sheet was posted outside the main office, and students had been adding their names for weeks. Darius added his name at the bottom, his handwriting small and careful. Darius Mitchell. Piano. Within an hour, someone had written next to his name, "Can't afford a house, but can play piano." Priorities, dude. Darius stared at the comment, then pulled out a pen and wrote below it, "Watch me." Trevor found him after school. Darius was heading to the music wing, and Trevor fell into step beside him with that easy confidence that came from never having to doubt your place in the world. "So I hear you're doing the talent show," Trevor said, conversationally. "Playing piano." "Yeah, that's brave. Or stupid, I can't decide which." Trevor stopped walking, forcing Darius to stop too. "Look, Mitchell, I'm going to be real with you. You seem like an okay guy, and I don't want to see you embarrass yourself. You're the homeless kid. That's what people know about you. You get up on that stage and they're not going to hear music. They're going to see a charity case trying to pretend he's something he's not. You're going to humiliate yourself. Darius met Trevor's eyes. You know what? I think you're scared. Scared of you. Trevor laughed. Scared that I might actually be good. Scared that the homeless kid might have talent you don't. Scared that for once in your life, money won't be enough to make you better than someone. Darius adjusted his backpack. And that's why you're trying to get me to quit. Because you know that if I do this, if I succeed, it proves that everything you believe about yourself, that you're special, that you're better, that you deserve everything you have. All of that might be wrong. Trevor's expression darkened. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? Darius shrugged. Guess we'll find out in 6 weeks. He walked away, his heart pounding but his head high. Behind him, he could feel Trevor's anger like a physical weight, and he knew he'd just made things worse. Trevor Logan wasn't the type to take challenges lightly, and Darius had just thrown down a gauntlet. But there was no taking it back now. The path was set. In 6 weeks, he'd stand on that stage and either prove himself or be destroyed trying. There was no middle ground, no safe outcome. Mrs. Morrison was waiting in the music room when he arrived. She'd heard about the sign-up sheet, about the comment someone left about Darius's response. You ready for this? She asked. Darius sat down at the piano, placed his fingers on the keys, and played the opening measure of Rachmaninoff's Prelude. It was rough, uncertain, nowhere near performance ready, but it was a beginning. I don't have a choice, he said. I'm ready or I'm not, but I'm doing it either way. Mrs. Morrison smiled. Then let's get to work. You have a lot to learn and not much time to learn it. For the next 6 weeks, that piano became Darius's world. Every afternoon, every spare moment, he was there. His fingers developed calluses. His back ached from maintaining proper posture. He dreamed in musical notation, woke up with melodies running through his head. The prelude was a monster. Just when Darius thought he'd mastered a section, Mrs. Morrison would point out a dozen things he was doing wrong. The timing was off. The dynamics were flat. The emotion wasn't there. Again. I can't do this, he said one day, his hands cramping, his head pounding from concentration. You're right, Mrs. Morrison said calmly. The Darius who walked into my classroom 3 months ago couldn't do this. But you're not that person anymore. You've practiced hundreds of hours. You've learned more in 3 months than some students learn in 3 years. You can do this, you just don't believe it yet. What if I freeze up there? What if I forget everything? Then you'll fail, and you'll survive. And you'll be no worse off than you are now. Mrs. Morrison leaned forward. But what if you don't freeze? What if you get up there and play like I know you can? What if you take every ounce of pain and humiliation and fear from these past months and pour it into that piano? What if you transform it into something beautiful? That's a lot of what ifs. Welcome to life, kid. It's all what ifs. The only question is which what ifs are worth the risk. 2 weeks before the talent show, the situation with Trevor reached a boiling point. Darius arrived at school to find his locker had been broken into. Nothing valuable was missing. He didn't have anything valuable, but someone had left a note. Save yourself the embarrassment. Drop out of the talent show or we'll make you wish you had. Darius showed the note to Mrs. Morrison. She wanted to go to the principal immediately, but Darius stopped her. If I run to adults every time Trevor does something, I'm proving him right, that I can't handle things myself, that I need protection, that I'm weak. Darius crumpled the note. I'm not backing down. Whatever he's planning, let him do it. I'll still be on that stage. That's very brave. Also very stupid. Probably both. Darius managed a smile. My mom says Mitchell men are good at brave and stupid. Mrs. Morrison didn't smile back. Darius, I need you to understand something. Trevor Logan comes from money and influence. His father is on the school board. If this escalates, it's already escalated. It escalated the day Trevor decided I was beneath him. Darius sat at the piano. Now can we please practice? I still can't get the middle section right. They practiced. But Mrs. Morrison's warning lingered in the air, a promise of storms to come. 1 week before the talent show, something shifted. Other students, not many, but some started approaching Darius. A girl from his English class brought him a granola bar. I have extras, she said, even though they both knew it was a lie. A boy from the debate team sat with him at lunch in the music wing. Trevor's an asshole, he said. Don't let him win. Small acts of kindness barely noticeable in the larger ecosystem of the school. But to Darius, they were everything. They were proof that not everyone agreed with Trevor, that not everyone saw him as less than human. 3 days before the talent show, Mrs. Morrison made an announcement. I'm hosting a small fundraiser this weekend, a concert in my church's community room. Some former students will perform, and I'm hoping to raise some money for the music program. She paused. Any donations beyond what the program needs will go to you and your mother. For an apartment deposit. Darius stared at her. You can't. I can, and I am. You and Diane deserve a home, Darius. This won't be enough for that, but it's a start. And everyone who donates will do it because they want to, not out of pity. They'll do it because they believe in you. That Saturday, Darius and his mother attended the concert. The church community room was small, holding maybe 50 people, but every seat was filled. Mrs. Morrison performed Chopin. A teenage girl sang opera. A young man played jazz saxophone. And when it was over, when people lined up to donate, Darius saw tears on his mother's face, the first tears he'd seen her shed since his father's funeral. That night, counting the donations in the car, they had almost $2,000. Not enough for a deposit and first month's rent at most apartments, but enough to hope. Enough to start. People are good, Diane whispered. I'd forgotten that. People can be so good. 2 days before the talent show, Darius had the prelude memorized. Every note, every dynamic, every emotional shift. It was in his blood now, part of him in a way he couldn't articulate. He could play it in his sleep, could feel the music flowing through him like breath. You're ready, Mrs. Morrison said, after his final practice session. Tomorrow just rest. Don't practice. Trust your preparation. I'm terrified, Darius admitted. Good. Fear means you care. Just don't let it paralyze you. She handed him a garment bag. This was my son's suit. He wore it for his high school graduation. He's built like you thin all height and no width yet. It should fit better than that jacket you've been wearing. Darius took the bag, his throat tight. Thank you. For everything. Thank your father, Mrs. Morrison said. He gave you the gift. I'm just helping you unwrap it. That night, one day, before the talent show, Darius tried on the suit. It fit perfectly, a dark blue that made him look older, more serious. He stared at himself in the Planet Fitness bathroom mirror and barely recognized the boy looking back. He looked like someone who had his life together, someone who belonged on a stage. He looked like his father's son. Tomorrow, he whispered to his reflection. Tomorrow, everything changes. He had no idea how right he was, or how wrong. The morning of the talent show, Darius woke to his mother's hand on his shoulder, gentle but insistent. Baby, we need to talk. The words sent instant dread through him. We need to talk never preceded good news. He sat up, already preparing for disaster, They'd been found out they had to move the car, something had broken that they couldn't afford to fix. But his mother's face held something different. Not worry hope, a trembling, fragile hope that looked almost painful. "I got a call last night," she said, "from a woman at my church. She owns a duplex in Germantown. Her tenants are moving out next week and she heard about our situation. She's offering us the place rent-controlled utilities included. We can afford it, Darius. With the money from Mrs. Morrison's fundraiser for deposit and my 3 jobs for monthly rent, we can actually afford it." Darius stared at her. "We're getting an apartment. We're getting a home." Diane's voice cracked on the last word. "You can move in next Friday, just in time for your 13th birthday. No more car, no more gym showers. An actual bedroom, Darius. Your own room." He should have been ecstatic. This was everything they'd been working toward for 11 months. But all he could think was, what if he failed tonight? What if he got up on that stage and humiliated himself? What if Trevor was right, and he was just deluding himself? "Hey." His mother cupped his face in her hands. "I know that look. That's your father's worry look. He got it right before big performances. But here's what I told him, and I'm telling you, you've already won. This apartment, this hope we have, you did this. Your talent, your courage, your refusal to quit, that's what inspired people to help us. Whether you play perfectly tonight or miss every note, you've already proven what you needed to prove." "I haven't proven it to them," Darius said quietly. "To Trevor. To everyone at school who thinks I'm nothing. Baby, their opinions don't pay rent. Their opinions don't put food on the table. Their opinions don't matter." She kissed his forehead. "But if you need to prove something for yourself, then get up on that stage and show them what a Mitchell can do. Show them what happens when you count us out." The school day crawled by with surreal slowness. Classes felt like fever dreams, the normal routine of lectures and assignments absurd against the backdrop of what was coming. Darius couldn't eat lunch, couldn't focus, couldn't do anything but watch the clock tick toward 7 p.m. showtime. Between 3rd and 4th period, he found his locker vandalized again. Someone had spray-painted homeless trash across it in red letters. A crowd had gathered, some students taking photos, others looking away in embarrassment. Trevor stood nearby, not quite part of the crowd, but close enough to make his presence felt. "Shame about your locker," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Some people have no class." Mr. Hendricks, the vice principal, pushed through the crowd. Who did this silence? That particular silence that meant everyone knew, but no one would tell. Snitching violated some unspoken code, even when the victim was someone they pitied. Mitchell. Mr. Hendricks said, "I'm sorry about this. We'll get it cleaned up. Do you know who?" No, Sir Darius lied. What was the point? Trevor hadn't done it himself. He was too smart for that. He'd had someone else do his dirty work and proving it was impossible. I have no idea. But he knew. And Trevor knew he knew. And that was the point, not just the vandalism, but the reminder that Trevor could touch him without consequences, that money and influence made you untouchable. "Tonight's talent show," Trevor said, as Mr. Hendricks walked away to find a janitor. "You still planning on performing?" "Yeah. Brave. Or suicidal. Still can't tell which." Trevor leaned against the neighboring locker. "You know what's going to happen, right? You're going to walk out there and people are going to laugh. Not because you're bad, hell, maybe you're good, I don't know. But because you're you. Because you're the homeless kid who thought he could play with the real students. Because watching you fail will be entertainment," maybe Darius said. "Or maybe I'll be so good that you'll finally have to admit that where someone sleeps has nothing to do with what they can do. Keep telling yourself that." Trevor pushed off the locker. "See you tonight. I'll be in the front row." 6th period was music class with Mrs. Morrison. She took one look at Darius and pulled him aside. "I heard about the locker. Are you okay, fine?" "Darius, I'm not fine. I'm terrified and angry and I want to run away and never come back." The words came out in a rush. "But I'm not going to. I'm going to play tonight, and I'm going to be perfect, and I'm going to make them eat every cruel word they've ever said." Mrs. Morrison studied him for a long moment. Anger can be fuel, but if you let it drive you, you'll crash. When you're on that stage tonight, don't play for Trevor. Don't play to prove something to people who've already made up their minds. Play for your father. Play for your mother. Play for yourself. Play because the music deserves to be heard, regardless of who's listening. What if I freeze, then you unfreeze? What if you miss a note, then I play the next one? What if they laugh, then I play louder? Mrs. Morrison smiled. "Darius, I've taught hundreds of students. Most of them were technically better than you. They'd had years of expensive lessons, advantages you never got. But maybe 5 had what you have: the ability to make music feel like it matters, to make people feel something. That's not technique, that's gift. And gifts don't disappear because you're nervous." After school, Darius went to the community center, where he'd first started teaching himself piano months ago. The piano there was out of tune and missing a key, but it had been his before Mrs. Morrison's classroom. It felt right to come back here before tonight. He played through the prelude once, start to finish, letting his fingers remember the journey. The somber opening like a funeral march. The building tension dark and ominous. The explosive middle section all fury and passion. The triumphant finale, hard won and glorious. His father had written a letter before he died. Darius had only read it once 2 years ago when the grief was still raw. But he remembered one line. "Music isn't an escape from life, Darius. It's how we make sense of life. It's how we take pain and beauty and confusion and turn it into something people can understand." Tonight, he'd take 11 months of homelessness, of bullying, of exhaustion and fear and shame, and he'd pour it into Rachmaninoff. He'd transform it into something undeniable. By 6 p.m., the auditorium was filling up. Darius peeked out from backstage and saw hundreds of people. Students, parents, teachers, local community members. The talent show was a big deal at Riverside Academy, an annual tradition that drew crowds. He saw his mother in the 3rd row, wearing the nice dress she usually saved for job interviews. She looked exhausted. She'd worked the morning shift at the diner and skipped her afternoon cleaning job to be here, but she was smiling proud. He saw Trevor in the front row, exactly where he'd promised to be surrounded by his crew. They were laughing about something passing around a phone. He saw Mrs. Morrison in the wings opposite him, mouthing, "You've got this." The show began. First up was a girl doing a comedy routine. Decent jokes, solid timing, good laughs. Then a group doing a choreographed dance. Then a boy singing a pop song slightly off-key, but enthusiastic. The audience was generous, applauding each act warmly. Darius was scheduled 6th, right before intermission. As the 5th act, a magic show, wrapped up, his heart began pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. His hands were sweating. His mouth was dry. Next up, the student MC announced, "We have Darius Mitchell performing Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor on piano." There was a weird ripple of recognition through the audience. Whispers. Darius heard his name repeated several times. Heard homeless kid, heard nervous laughter. Trevor's voice cut through clearly. "This is going to be good." Darius walked onto the stage. The walk from backstage to the piano felt like miles. Each step echoed in Darius's ears impossibly loud, in a room that had fallen into expectant silence. Not the good kind of silence, the predatory kind, the kind that precedes judgment. The stage lights were harsh, exactly as he'd remembered from his brief moment in the cold open of this story. They turned the audience into shadows and silhouettes' faces lost in darkness, except for the occasional phone screen glowing like a malevolent eye. Darius knew they were taking photos, probably posting to social media, with captions he didn't want to imagine. The piano waited center stage. It was a beautiful instrument, a Steinway grand, probably worth more than every place Darius had ever lived combined. Under the lights, its black lacquer surface gleamed like deep water. He reached the piano bench and stopped. This was the moment. He could still walk away, could claim stage fright, could say he wasn't ready, could preserve some dignity rather than risk total humiliation. But his mother was in the third row. Mrs. Morrison was watching from the wings, and somewhere in whatever place dead fathers went, Vincent Mitchell was watching his son stand at a crossroads. Darius sat down. The bench was the right height. Mrs. Morrison had adjusted it during rehearsal yesterday. That small familiarity grounded him slightly. His hands found the keys not pressing down yet, just touching, remembering their geography. From the front row, someone, definitely one of Trevor's group, let out an exaggerated yawn. Laughter followed quickly, shushed, but not quickly enough. Darius closed his eyes. Mrs. Morrison's voice echoed in his memory. "Don't play for them. Play for the music." He took a breath, held it, released it, and then nothing. His mind went blank. Completely, terrifyingly blank. The opening notes of the prelude, which he'd played hundreds of times, which he could execute in his sleep, which were as familiar as his own name, gone. Vanished. Replaced by white noise and panic. His fingers remained on the keys, frozen. Seconds ticked by, 2, 3, 5, each second an eternity. The silence in the auditorium shifted from expectant to confused to uncomfortable. Someone coughed. Someone else whispered. Trevor's voice stage whisper, loud, choke artist. More laughter, less restrained now. The audience sensed blood in the water. This was about to become the story they'd tell tomorrow, next week, next year. Remember when the homeless kid forgot how to play? Darius's eyes remained closed. In the darkness behind his eyelids, panic screamed. Every fear he'd ever had about this moment was coming true. He was freezing. He was failing. He was proving Trevor right. And then from somewhere in his memory, his father's voice. When you freeze, you're thinking about the notes. Stop thinking. Feel. Darius stopped trying to remember the opening. Stopped trying to be perfect. Instead, he thought about his mother working 3 jobs, about sleeping in a car, about Trevor's laughter, about Mrs. Morrison's belief, about the piano that had been sold to pay medical bills. About 11 months of homelessness and shame and anger. About all of it. Every bit of pain and hope and fear. And he felt it. His right hand moved, pinky finger, pressing down on the lowest note of the opening chord. C sharp. The note rang out deep and somber, filling the auditorium with sound that was almost a physical presence. Then the rest of the chord, G sharp, D sharp. Then the left hand joining the bass notes like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, inevitable. The prelude had begun. But just as Darius's confidence started to return, just as his fingers began to remember their training disaster, struck in a way he never anticipated. He was 4 measures in the somber opening, giving way to the first hints of the storm that would come, when his mind supplied a horrifying realization. he'd started wrong. The fingering was off subtle enough that the audience wouldn't hear, but he felt it knew it, and it threw everything into question. Should he stop? Start over? Keep going? And hope he could correct midstream? His hands kept playing while his brain spiraled. The music continued correct notes, but wrong feeling, mechanical rather than emotional. He was playing the piece, but he wasn't playing it. And the audience could tell. The polite attention was morphing into restlessness. Someone cleared their throat. Chairs shifted. Darius was losing them. Worse, he was losing himself. The panic he'd fought off was returning, flooding his system with adrenaline that made his fingers tremble. A note came out wrong sharp instead of flat, and he heard the mistake echo in the acoustically perfect auditorium. Trevor's group in the front row exchanged glances. Grins. This was what they'd been waiting for. The piece moved into the middle section, the part where the somber melody explodes into fury. This was where Darius needed to be most in control, most precise, most passionate. This was where the prelude transformed from mourning to rage. He hit the section's opening chord sequence, supposed to be powerful, thunderous, commanding. But his fingers were shaking now. His confidence shattered, and what came out was tepid, weak. From the third row, Darius caught a glimpse of his mother's face. Even in the darkness, he could see her expression, not disappointment, but concern. She knew he was drowning. Mrs. Morrison in the wings had her hand pressed to her mouth. And Trevor. Trevor was openly smiling, now leaning over to whisper something to Austin that made them both laugh. Darius reached the most technically difficult passage in the entire piece, a cascading run of notes that required perfect finger independence and split-second timing. On a good day with confidence, he could execute it. Today was not a good day. His fingers tangled. He missed 3 notes in sequence, the errors obvious even to untrained ears. Someone in the audience actually gasped, not in appreciation but in second-hand embarrassment. This was it, the moment of total failure. He could stop now, walk off stage, save whatever dignity remained, or he could push through, finish the piece badly, and cement his humiliation forever. Darius's hands hovered over the keys, tears burning behind his closed eyelids. He'd worked so hard, practiced so many hours, believed so completely that talent and effort could overcome circumstance. And he was failing anyway. From the audience, Trevor's voice cut through the silence. "Give up, Mitchell. You've embarrassed yourself enough." The words landed like a physical blow. Darius's hands fell away from the piano, dropped into his lap. His shoulders slumped. He was done. But then no. The word came from his mother. She'd stood up in the third row, and her voice rang out clear and fierce. "Don't you dare quit, Darius Mitchell. Don't you give them the satisfaction." The audience turned to look at her, this tired woman in a discount dress. This mother who'd worked herself to exhaustion for months, standing in a room full of people, with 10 times her wealth and education, refusing to be intimidated. "Your father never quit," Diane continued. And now she was crying, but her voice didn't waver. Not when clubs wouldn't hire him, not when critics dismissed him, not when cancer was eating him alive. He played until his fingers wouldn't work anymore. "You hear me, baby? He never quit." Darius opened his eyes, looked at his mother, saw not just her love, but her absolute faith. Not faith that he'd play perfectly, faith that he was more than this moment, more than these mistakes, more than Trevor Logan's laughter. "You're a Mitchell," she said, quieter now, but no less fierce. "And Mitchells finish what they start." Darius looked at his hands. They were still shaking. He looked at the piano, at the keys that had betrayed him. He looked at Trevor, who'd stopped smiling, who was looking between Darius and Diane with something like discomfort crossing his face. And then Darius made a choice. He put his hands back on the keys. From the top, he said loud enough for the first few rows to hear, "I'm starting over." A murmur ran through the audience. Surprise, respect, skepticism. The MC looked confused, started to approach the stage, but Mrs. Morrison waved him off. Darius closed his eyes again. But this time he didn't try to remember the notes. He didn't think about technique or performance or Trevor's expectations. He thought about his father. Vincent Mitchell, at a piano, in a smoke-filled jazz club, playing for 20 people who weren't really listening, playing like it was Carnegie Hall anyway. Vincent in their apartment teaching 7-year-old Darius where middle C was, his hands so much larger, guiding small fingers with infinite patience. Vincent in a hospital bed so weak he could barely sit up. But humming melodies, always melodies, music, until the very end. Music is how we make sense of life, his father had written. How we take pain and beauty and turn it into something people can understand. Darius understood now. This performance wasn't about proving he was better than Trevor. It wasn't about showing the audience what a homeless kid could do. It wasn't even about the music itself. It was about honoring his father, about taking 11 months of pain, the car, the hunger, the shame, the bullying, and transforming it into beauty, about refusing to let circumstances define him, about being a Mitchell. His pinky found C-sharp, pressed down. The note rang out, and this time it was different. Fuller, richer, right. The opening chords came again, but now they carried weight. Meaning. The somber progression wasn't just notes on a page. It was grief for his father, exhaustion from his mother's sacrifice, the loneliness of being invisible in a school where everyone saw him. 4 measures. 8. 12. The opening section unfolded, and this time Darius wasn't playing the piece. He was living it. The audience fell silent. Really silent this time. The restlessness vanished. Phone screens dimmed as people lowered their devices, pulled into the music despite themselves. The melody built toward the explosive middle section. Darius felt it coming like a storm on the horizon, felt the rage and passion coiling in the composition, waiting to be released. And when it came, when his fingers crashed into those thunderous chords, when the full fury of Rachmaninoff's genius poured through him, it wasn't technique anymore. It was pure emotion made sound. This was the anger of every homeless night, every mocking laugh, every moment of feeling less than human. This was the defiance of continuing anyway, the courage of refusing to quit, the burning, brilliant rage of the oppressed, striking back not with violence but with undeniable beauty. The notes cascaded like a waterfall, complex and precise and passionate. Darius's hands flew over the keys, executing passages that had tripped him up minutes ago with ease, now because he wasn't thinking he was feeling, and feeling was his father's gift. The audience was transfixed. Even Trevor had stopped smiling, was leaning forward, caught, despite himself. Mrs. Morrison was crying in the wings. Diane was crying in the 3rd row. And Darius was playing like his life depended on it, because in a way it did. This moment would define how he saw himself forever, as someone who quit when it got hard, or someone who got back up. As a victim of circumstance, or a survivor who transformed pain into art. The piece moved toward its conclusion, the fury giving way to resolution. The final section was triumph, not easy victory, but hard-won understanding, suffering transformed into wisdom. It was the musical equivalent of, "I've been through hell, and I'm still here." Darius poured everything he had into those final measures. Every ounce of hope for the apartment they'd get next week. Every bit of gratitude for his mother's love. Every spark of determination to be more than where he came from. The penultimate chord rang out powerful and clear, and then the final note, singular, resolute, fading slowly into silence. Darius's hands lifted from the keys. He opened his eyes. The auditorium was completely silent. For one terrible second, Darius thought he'd failed again, that the silence was judgment, that he'd misread everything. And then his mother stood up and started clapping. Mrs. Morrison joined her. And then, like a dam breaking, the entire auditorium erupted. The sound hit Darius like a physical wave. Not polite applause, thunderous, overwhelming, the kind of response that shakes walls and rattles windows. People weren't just clapping. They were on their feet, a standing ovation that spread through the auditorium like wildfire. Darius sat frozen at the piano bench, unable to process what was happening. This wasn't in the script he'd imagined. He'd prepared for mockery or tepid politeness, maybe scattered applause from people who felt sorry for him. He'd never imagined this genuine enthusiasm, real appreciation, shock, transforming into respect. His mother was sobbing openly now, not trying to hide it, her hands pressed to her mouth between bursts of applause. Around her, other parents were standing clapping, and Darius saw several of them with tears in their eyes too. Music had a way of cracking people open, of reaching past defenses, and touching something true. Mrs. Morrison rushed onto the stage, her professional composure abandoned, and pulled Darius into a fierce hug. "Your father," she whispered into his ear. "Your father would be so proud." Darius, that was extraordinary. The MC had to try 3 times to quiet the audience enough to speak. Darius Mitchell. Everyone he shouted into the microphone, and another wave of applause surged up. I think it's safe to say that was the most incredible performance in Riverside Academy talent show history. Darius finally managed to stand, his legs shaking. He looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar, most not, and saw something he'd never expected to see, directed at him, admiration. These people weren't clapping out of pity. They were clapping because he'd moved them, because he'd made them feel something real. But it was the front row that held his attention. Trevor Logan stood with his arms crossed, not clapping, his face a complicated mix of emotions Darius couldn't fully read. Anger, definitely. But also something else. Shame. Respect. The realization that his entire campaign of cruelty had been built on sand. Trevor's friends around him were applauding, caught up in the moment, and their defection seemed to sting him more than Darius's success. For the first time since Darius had arrived at Riverside Academy, Trevor Logan looked uncertain, looked small, looked like what he really was, a 13-year-old boy trying to prop up his ego by tearing others down. As Darius walked off stage, students he'd never spoken to reached out to touch his arm, to offer congratulations. A girl from his history class grabbed his hand. That was beautiful. You made me cry. A boy he recognized from the football team, dude, that was insane. How'd you learn to play like that? In the backstage area, Darius finally found a quiet corner and let himself shake. The adrenaline was leaving his system, replaced by bone-deep exhaustion and disbelief. He'd done it. Not perfectly, he'd stumbled, nearly quit, but he'd done it. He'd gotten back up and finished, and somehow impossibly, it had worked. His mother found him there, pushed through the crowd of students and parents offering congratulations. She didn't say anything, just pulled him into her arms and held him while he cried into her shoulder, tears of relief and release, and overwhelming emotion he couldn't name. "I almost gave up," he whispered. "I almost walked away." "But you didn't," Diane said fiercely. "You didn't, baby." You got back up. That's what matters. Not that you stumbled, that you got back up. Mrs. Morrison appeared with her phone. Darius, I need to show you something. The talent show is being live-streamed. The school does it every year for parents who can't attend. But your performance... She turned the phone screen toward him. It's going viral. Darius looked at the screen. The school's live stream had been shared and reshared across social media. The view count was climbing rapidly, thousands, tens of thousands. Comments flooded in faster than he could read them. Who is this kid? That was incredible. I'm a classical pianist and this is college-level playing. How old is he? Crying at my desk. That was pure emotion. The fact that he started over after messing up and still killed it. Respect. Someone signed this kid to Juilliard yesterday. Mrs. Morrison scrolled through more comments, her smile growing. Darius, people are asking about you. Classical music blogs are picking it up. The Philadelphia Inquirer's arts section just tweeted the clip. This is bigger than the talent show. This is a moment. The rest of the talent show continued, but Darius barely registered it. He sat backstage, his mother beside him, watching the social media response grow like a living thing. By the time the final act performed, his performance had been viewed over 100,000 times. News outlets were reaching out to the school for information. Music schools were commenting, asking if Darius had representation, if he'd considered auditioning for their programs. When they announced the talent show winner, there was no suspense. Darius won by acclamation. He walked back onto the stage to another standing ovation. The principal, Dr. Sarah Okafor, handed him a trophy and pulled him aside. "Mr. Mitchell," she said quietly, "I'm going to be honest with you. Until tonight, I didn't know your situation. I didn't know you were experiencing homelessness. That's a failure on our part, on my part, and I apologize. But effective tomorrow, I'm connecting your mother with our district's family services coordinator. We have emergency housing resources, food assistance programs, and scholarship opportunities I want to make sure you both know about." "We actually got an apartment," Darius said. "We're moving in next week." Dr. Okafor smiled. "Even better. But the offer stands. Riverside Academy takes care of its students, Darius, and you are very much our student." She paused. "I also want you to know that the behavior you've experienced, the bullying, the vandalism that ends now, I'll be having conversations with certain students and their families. What happened to you never should have happened. We can't undo it, but we can make sure it doesn't continue." As the auditorium emptied, Darius saw Trevor standing near the exit alone. His friends had left, probably uncomfortable with being associated with him now that Darius had proven himself. Trevor looked small in a way he never had before, diminished somehow. Darius walked over to him. Part of him wanted to gloat, to throw Trevor's cruelty back in his face, to make him feel as small as he'd made Darius feel for months. But mostly Darius just felt tired. "That was good," Trevor said, not meeting Darius's eyes. The words sounded forced, pulled from him against his will. "Thanks." A long pause. "Then Trevor said I was wrong. About you. About a lot of things. It wasn't an apology, not really, but it was acknowledgement, which was something. Darius could have pushed for more, could have demanded a real apology, could have made Trevor grovel. Instead, he said, "Yeah, you were." He walked past Trevor toward his mother, who was waiting by the auditorium doors. Behind him, he heard Trevor say quietly, "I'm sorry." Darius didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge it. Let Trevor sit with his apology. Let him understand that sorry doesn't erase months of cruelty, that actions have consequences, that some things can't be fixed with a few words. But he'd heard it. And that mattered even if he'd never admit it to Trevor. Outside, the November night was cold and clear. Stars dotted the sky, visible even with the suburban light pollution. Darius and his mother walked toward their car, soon to be their former home, just transport again, instead of shelter in comfortable silence. "You know what the best part was," Diane finally said. "Not the applause, though, that was wonderful. Not even the playing, though you were magnificent. It was watching you choose to get back up, watching you decide that you weren't going to let them win. That's the part your father would have loved most." They reached the Honda Civic. One more week sleeping in this car. One more week of gym showers and hidden routines. But now it felt different, temporary, survivable, almost over. Darius looked back at the school building lit up against the night sky. Through the windows he could see people still milling around, still talking, probably still talking about him. In the past, being talked about had meant mockery. Tonight, it meant something else entirely. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Morrison. "Check your email. Philadelphia Music Academy wants to schedule an audition for their summer intensive program. Full scholarship if accepted. I sent them your performance video. They called it extraordinary natural talent." Darius, this could change everything. He showed the text to his mother. She read it, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Everything's changing," she whispered. "Everything's finally changing." That night in the back of the car, Darius couldn't sleep. His mind replayed the performance over and over, the mistakes, the recovery, the moment the audience began to understand that they were witnessing something real. He thought about his father, about the piano that had been sold, about all the pieces of his old life that had been stripped away. And he realized something: losing everything had been terrible. Yes, traumatic and painful, and something he wouldn't wish on anyone. But it had also stripped him down to essentials, had forced him to discover what remained when everything else was gone. What remained was music, was resilience, was his mother's love and Mrs. Morrison's belief, and his own stubborn refusal to be defined by circumstances. What remained was enough to build on. His phone buzzed again. Another email, this one from a local news station requesting an interview. Then another from a classical music blog. Then a message from someone claiming to represent a talent agency. The notifications kept coming, a digital avalanche of opportunities and attention that would have seemed impossible 12 hours ago. Darius turned off his phone. He'd deal with all of that tomorrow. Tonight, he just wanted to remember how it felt to stand on that stage, to feel music flowing through him like electricity, to transform pain into beauty. Tonight, he wanted to remember that he was Vincent Mitchell's son, that he was Diane Mitchell's son, that he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. Tomorrow, the world would be different. Opportunities would open. Life would shift in ways he couldn't predict. But tonight, in the back of a Honda Civic parked in a Planet Fitness lot, Darius Mitchell fell asleep, smiling. He'd proven something to the world tonight, but more importantly, he'd proven something to himself, that talent and determination could overcome circumstance, that art could transform suffering, that getting back up mattered more than never falling. The applause had faded. The stage lights were dark. But the music remained living inside him, waiting for the next performance, the next transformation, the next chance to show what was possible when you refused to quit. The video went viral overnight. By morning, Darius's performance had been viewed over 1 million times across various platforms. Classical music accounts, talent spotting pages, inspirational content curators, everyone was sharing it with captions like "Homeless prodigy stuns audience," and "When talent transcends circumstance," and "The performance that changed everything." Darius woke to his phone exploding with notifications. Text messages from numbers he didn't recognize. Instagram follow requests in the thousands. DMs from journalists, music schools, and people claiming to want to help. It was overwhelming in a way that felt both exciting and slightly terrifying. His mother was already awake, scrolling through her own phone with wide eyes. "Baby," she said, when she saw he was up, "have you seen any of this?" "Some of it. It's a lot. It's more than a lot. The Philadelphia Inquirer wants to interview us. CNN picked up the story for their human interest segment." And she paused, her voice catching. "Darius, there's a GoFundMe. Someone from the school started it to help us with moving costs and furniture for the new apartment. It's already raised $20,000. $20,000. Darius couldn't process that number, couldn't connect it to reality. "How is that possible? Because people saw you last night," Diane said, pulling him into a hug. "They saw your talent, yes. But more than that, they saw your heart. They saw you stumble and get back up. They saw what it means to refuse to quit. And people responded to that. At school, everything was different. Students who'd never spoken to Darius before greeted him in the hallways. Teachers congratulated him. Even the lunch staff who'd probably noticed him rationing food for months gave him extra portions with kind smiles. But it was the conversation with Trevor that marked the real shift. Darius found him at lunch, sitting alone for once. His usual crew was at another table, pointedly not looking at their former leader. Social hierarchies were brutal when you fell from the top. "Can I sit?" Darius asked. Trevor looked up, surprised. "You want to sit with me?" "After everything, I want to talk to you." Trevor gestured to the empty seats. Up close, he looked different. Smaller, somehow. Younger. The confident mask he'd worn for months had cracked, revealing the insecure kid underneath. "I'm sorry," Trevor said immediately. "I mean really sorry, not the half-assed apology from last night. What I did to you, the bullying, the locker, the Instagram account, all of it, there's no excuse. I was cruel because I could be, because tearing you down made me feel bigger. That's pathetic." "Yeah, it is," Darius agreed. He didn't try to soften it. Trevor nodded, accepting the judgment. "My dad saw the video, saw all the comments about what I'd done to you. He was ashamed of me, said I'd embarrassed the family, made them look bad. And the thing is, I didn't even care about that. I cared that you were right, that I was scared. Scared that someone with nothing could be better than someone with everything. Because if that's true, then what's the point of everything I have?" "That's not my problem to solve for you," Darius said. "I know. I'm not asking you to forgive me or be my friend or anything. I'm just saying, you were right about me, and I'm going to try to be better." Trevor stood to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, that performance was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. You made me feel something real, probably for the first time in my life. So, thank you, for that at least." After Trevor left, a girl from Darius's English class approached. "Is it true?" she asked. "The GoFundMe, the apartment, all of it, yeah. That's amazing. Really, you deserve good things." She hesitated, then added, "A bunch of us have been talking. We want to start a tutoring program like students helping students who might be struggling. And we want to add a music mentorship thing where people can learn instruments even if they can't afford lessons. Would you maybe want to help with that?" The music part? Darius felt something shift in his chest. This was what transformation looked like. Not just personal success, but creating opportunities for others. Turning his experience into something that could help people like him. "Yeah," he said. "I'd really like that." That afternoon, Mrs. Morrison called him into her classroom. "I have news," she said, barely containing her excitement. "The Philadelphia Music Academy called. They want you for their summer intensive program, full scholarship, housing included. But more than that, they're offering you a spot in their Saturday youth program, starting next month. Private lessons, ensemble playing, music theory, everything you'd need to seriously pursue music as a career. "But the Saturday program is in the city," Darius said. "I don't have a way to get there." Mrs. Morrison smiled. "The school district is providing transportation. Dr. Okafor pushed it through this morning. You'll have a spot on a shuttle that picks up students for enrichment programs." She paused. "Darius, doors are opening for you. Real opportunities. But they're going to require more work than you've ever done. The talent show was the beginning, not the end." "Are you ready for that?" Darius thought about his father practicing in clubs for audiences that barely listened, working day jobs and playing nights, never giving up on his dream, even when it didn't make financial sense. He thought about his mother, 3 jobs, and endless sacrifice, never once complaining. He thought about the 11 months in the car, the bullying, the moment on that stage when he chose to get back up. "Yeah," he said, "I'm ready." The week passed in a blur of media attention and logistical planning. The GoFundMe continued to grow. Final total was over $50,000 after various matching donations from local businesses. It was more money than Darius's family had ever had enough, not just for the apartment, but for furniture, clothes, a decent used car for his mother, so she could cut down to 2 jobs instead of 3. On Friday moving day, the school community showed up. Mrs. Morrison organized a team of teachers and students to help move the few boxes they had and to bring donations, dishes, linens, a proper bed for Darius, a desk for homework. Trevor showed up too, though he stayed in the background just helping carry things without drawing attention to himself. The apartment in Germantown was small. 2 bedrooms, an efficiency kitchen, a living room that could barely fit a couch, but it had heat and running water and doors that locked and windows that looked out onto a street with trees. It was without question the most beautiful place Darius had ever lived. His room, his own room, not the back of a car or a corner of a shelter, had space for his bed, his desk, and in the corner, the surprise that made him cry, a piano. Not grand like the one at school, but an upright, slightly used, but well-maintained with a card that read, "From everyone at Riverside Academy. Keep playing, keep inspiring, keep proving what's possible." That night after the helpers had left, and the boxes were mostly unpacked, and his mother was asleep in her own room for the first time in a year, Darius sat at his piano and played. Not Rachmaninoff this time, not anything complicated, just simple chords, basic melodies, the kind of music his father used to play when life was hard and joy was scarce but stubborn. Music that said, "We survived. We're still here. We're going to be okay." Through the thin apartment walls, he could hear neighbors' voices, laughter, televisions, the sounds of ordinary life. After 11 months of silence, broken only by his mother's breathing and his own fears, those sounds were like a symphony. He was home, really home. And tomorrow, the real work would begin, practicing for the summer intensive, working with the Saturday youth program, starting the tutoring initiative at school, building a life note by note, choice by choice. But tonight, he just played. For his father who'd given him this gift. For his mother who'd sacrificed everything to give him a chance. For Mrs. Morrison who'd believed when no one else did. For every kid who'd ever been counted out, every talent that almost got buried, every person who'd stumbled and gotten back up. He played because he could. Because it mattered. Because music was how you made sense of life. And because finally, impossibly wonderfully, everything was going to be okay. March. Snow fell soft and steady outside the windows of the Philadelphia Music Academy's recital hall. Inside, Warmth and anticipation filled the air as families settled into their seats for the Saturday Youth Program's spring showcase. Darius stood backstage looking at his reflection in a mirror. 3 months since the talent show. 3 months since his life had changed. The boy in the mirror looked different now. Still thin, still all awkward teenage angles, but standing straighter. Confident in a way that had nothing to do with where he slept or what he wore. The suit he wore wasn't borrowed. His mother had bought it with her first paycheck from her new job, just one job now. Administrative assistant at a non-profit with regular hours and health insurance, and the kind of stability that seemed impossible 3 months ago. "You're on in 5, a stage manager called out. Darius nodded, but he wasn't nervous. Not like before. He'd performed 6 times since the talent show, small venues, mostly community centers, and school assemblies, but each one had been easier. Each one had reinforced what he'd learned that night at Riverside, that music didn't betray you if you trusted it, that stumbling wasn't the same as failing, that getting back up was its own kind of victory. Mrs. Morrison appeared beside him. "How do you feel?" "Good." "Ready. That's my boy." She adjusted his collar, a gesture that felt maternal. "Your father would be so proud, not just of your playing, of who you're becoming, of the doors you're opening for other kids." The tutoring and mentorship program at Riverside had grown beyond anyone's expectations. 20 students now received free music lessons. 30 more got academic support from peer tutors. The program had even expanded to 2 other schools in the district. Darius led the music component, teaching basic piano to kids who'd never touched an instrument before passing on the gift Mrs. Morrison had given him. "5 minutes ago, I was one of those kids," Darius said. "I can't forget that. Won't forget it. I know. That's what makes you special, not just the talent, but the empathy. The understanding that talent without opportunity is just potential energy, never kinetic." Mrs. Morrison smiled. "Now go out there and show them what kinetic energy looks like." The recital hall was smaller than Riverside's auditorium, but more intimate, the acoustics designed specifically for classical music. Darius walked onto the stage to warm applause, his mother in the front row. Always the front row now, other families, students from the Saturday program, some reporters who'd followed his story. Trevor Logan was there too. He'd asked if he could come, said he wanted to understand classical music, better wanted to learn what it was that Darius saw in it. They weren't friends, probably never would be, but they'd reached something like mutual respect. Trevor was doing better too, volunteering at a homeless shelter, trying to unlearn the casual cruelty that money and privilege had taught him. Redemption wasn't a one-time thing, Darius had learned. It was daily choice, persistent effort, the slow work of becoming better than you were. He sat at the piano, a beautiful Steinway, even nicer than the one at Riverside. The Academy had offered him a full scholarship for high school, starting next fall. 4 years of intensive musical training, college prep, connections to conservatories and competitions, and opportunities that most kids only dreamed of. All of it possible because of one night. One performance. One choice to get back up. Tonight's piece was Chopin Nocturne in E-flat major, gentler than Rachmaninoff, more introspective. Music about beauty in darkness, about finding light in unexpected places. It felt right for this moment, for this audience, for who he was becoming. Darius placed his hands on the keys and began to play. The music flowed through him, natural as breathing. No fear now, no panic. Just the conversation between pianist and piano, the transformation of thought into sound, the alchemy that his father had known, and that Darius was still discovering. As he played, he thought about the journey, the car, the bullying, the moment he almost quit. He thought about all the people who'd lifted him up, his mother's unwavering love, Mrs. Morrison's belief, the strangers who'd donated to help his family, the students who'd rallied around the mentorship program. And he thought about the kids he was teaching now, the ones who reminded him of himself 3 months ago. Talented but overlooked, capable but unsupported, full of potential but lacking opportunity. He played for them too, a promise that their circumstances weren't their destiny, that doors could open in the most unexpected ways. The nocturne's final notes faded into silence, that perfect moment of stillness before applause breaks the spell. Darius lifted his hands from the keys and looked out at the audience. His mother was crying again, but these were happy tears, proud tears, the tears of someone who'd survived a nightmare and could finally see the dawn. The applause came warm and genuine. Darius stood and bowed, and in that moment he felt his father's presence, not literally, but as a kind of knowing, a certainty that Vincent Mitchell would have loved this moment, would have been proud not just of the playing, but of the person his son was becoming. After the recital, after the congratulations, and the photos, and the discussions with other parents about the mentorship program, Darius and his mother walked to their car, the used Toyota Diane had bought, with money from the GoFundMe, reliable and warm, and everything the Honda Civic hadn't been. "I have something for you," Diane said when they were settled inside. She pulled a small box from her purse and handed it to Darius. Inside was a silver ring, simple but elegant. Engraved on the inside, "Music is how we make sense of life." "Dad, it was your father's." Diane explained, her voice thick with emotion. "I'd pawned it years ago during one of the rough patches, but last week I went back to that pawn shop. It was still there after all this time, waiting." Darius slipped the ring onto his finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for him. In a way, it had been waiting for him to grow into his father's legacy, to understand what those words meant. "Thank you," he whispered. They drove home through the snowy Philadelphia streets, past the Planet Fitness, where they'd once lived, past Riverside Academy, where everything had changed, past the community center, where Darius had first taught himself to play. Each landmark a chapter in a story that wasn't over, that was really just beginning. At home, that word still felt miraculous. Darius went to his room and sat at his piano. His own piano, in his own room, in his own home. The impossibility of it still took his breath away sometimes. He thought about the 13-year-old kid he'd been 3 months ago, sleeping in a car, hiding his circumstances, afraid that his life would always be defined by what he didn't have, rather than what he could do. He wished he could tell that kid what was coming, not to spare him the pain, but to let him know it would be worth it. That the struggle would forge him into something stronger, that the stumbling would teach him to get back up that rock bottom was the strongest foundation to build on. But that kid would figure it out on his own, the same way Darius had. Through music and stubbornness and the refusal to let circumstances become destiny. Darius began to play improvising rather than following any particular piece. Just notes and chords, melodies emerging and dissolving the piano as conversation partner rather than instrument. This was how his father had played in those late-night sessions Darius remembered from childhood, not performing, just communing with the music, letting it say what words couldn't. And as he played, Darius understood something he hadn't fully grasped. Before, the talent show hadn't been the climax of his story. It had been the beginning. Everything since the opportunities. The mentorship program, the scholarship, the chance to help other kids. That was the real transformation. Not from homeless to housed, but from surviving to thriving, from receiving help to giving it, from being saved to saving others. That was what his father had meant about music making sense of life. It wasn't just about playing beautifully. It was about taking your experiences, your pain, your joy, your whole messy human existence, and transforming it into something that could touch other people, that could make them feel less alone, that could open doors they didn't know existed. The snow continued to fall outside, covering the city in white. Inside, in a small apartment in Germantown, a 13-year-old boy played piano and dreamed of the future. Not a vague, impossible future, but a real one. College at a music conservatory, maybe. Performing professionally. Teaching. Opening more doors for more kids. Using his gift not just for himself, but for everyone who needed to hear that circumstances weren't destiny, that talent could overcome poverty, that getting back up was the most important skill you could ever learn. The music flowed on, filling the apartment, spilling out into the hallway, becoming part of the building's symphony of sounds, proof of life, proof of survival, proof that beautiful things could grow in the hardest soil. Darius Mitchell was home. And his story, the real story, was just beginning. Darius's story didn't end that snowy March evening. It couldn't end because stories like his don't have neat conclusions. They branch out, inspire others, create ripples that touch lives in ways that can't be predicted or measured. By the time Darius turned 14, 6 months after the talent show that changed his life, the mentorship program he'd helped create at Riverside Academy had expanded to 12 schools across the Philadelphia metro area. Hundreds of students were receiving music instruction, academic tutoring, and mentorship from peers who understood what it meant to struggle. The local news ran a feature story about the program, and in it, Darius said something that would be quoted and reshared thousands of times. Talent is everywhere. Opportunity isn't. All we're doing is closing that gap one kid at a time. He performed regularly now, recitals, competitions, community events. He didn't always win, didn't always play perfectly, but he always showed up, always got back up when he stumbled, always remembered where he came from and who he was playing for. And every time he sat at a piano, every time his fingers found those keys, he thought about his father, about his mother, about Mrs. Morrison and Trevor's unlikely transformation, and every person who'd ever told him his circumstances didn't define his potential. He thought about the kid sleeping in a car somewhere, terrified and ashamed, not knowing that there was a way forward. And he played for that kid, for all those kids. A promise in musical form: you can make it through this. You are more than where you sleep. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. If this story moved you, if you see yourself in Darius's struggle or triumph or refusal to quit, then you understand why it matters. Stories like this, stories about getting back up, about talent, transcending circumstance, about the transformative power of believing in someone when no one else will. These stories don't just entertain, they change lives. Maybe you know someone like Darius, talented, but overlooked, capable, but unsupported, one opportunity away from transformation. Maybe you can be someone's Mrs. Morrison, someone's believer. Maybe you can help close that gap between talent and opportunity, even if it's just for one person. Or maybe you are Darius, fighting to prove yourself, struggling against circumstances that feel impossible, one bad day away from giving up. If that's you, hear this: get back up. Whatever stage you're approaching, whatever performance you're terrified of, whatever moment of truth is waiting, get back up. Your talent matters. Your story matters. The world needs what you can give it. Darius Mitchell started with nothing but a gift and the determination to use it. He stumbled. He almost quit. He got back up. That's not just his story. It's the human story. The story of every person who's ever faced impossible odds and chosen to fight anyway. The story of resilience and redemption and refusing to be defined by circumstances. Your story is still being written. What will the next chapter say?